Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy Bolduc, and my guest today is Kimberly Haley-Coleman. She is the CEO of Globe Aware, which is I'm gonna say it my way because I that's how I remember it.
Good.
But you can correct me and add too. So it is volunteer vacations and then some. So we're talking about like ethical travel, but also travel with purpose.
That's right. That's absolutely perfect. Thank you so much for having me, Amy.
Thank you for being here. I love that. So tell us about this. You said you
Sure.
you founded this like 25 years ago ish,
Right.
and how has growth been?
Yeah. Okay. So it's really been a bit of a roller coaster over time. And if I could jump in and just flesh out you did a great job of defining it, but I'd love to kind of give my
Please.
thoughts on it. So we specialize in short term. By short term, I mean 1 week volunteer vacations in 26 countries around the world. And it can be a confusing concept for a lot of people. It's like the Peace Corps, except it's,
Sure.
1 week instead of 2.5 years. And it's similar to mission work, but there's no church affiliation and there's no proselytization or conversion. And we're in each of these communities every other week, basically throughout the year.
Wow.
Small teams. So if somebody says, well, I want to go to Cambodia February 2nd, they're going to meet 9 other people. And it's basically lock, stock, key, and barrel because we pick you up. We have your food, your accommodations, project materials, medical insurance, our bilingual coordinator that shepherds you through the process. And then we have 3 to 5 planned but optional leisure slash cultural activities, which tend to be a little less traditional consumer tourism. There's certainly a role for going to churches and museums and beaches, but this has more to do with, a coffee tasting with a local family, taking, you know, going on a nature hike with our coordinator and some of the neighbors, bringing some kids on our Machu Picchu excursion so that they're getting to see it and go down the stone slides near Sacsayhuaman, just things that you might not experience as a traditional tourist. We are not staying at the Ritz-Carlton since our prices are around $1,500 for the week. We are staying in mid-range to modest accommodations. So we have running water, hot water, flushing toilets, electricity, but you don't have room service, butler, things like that. And we are really heavy in Southeast Asia, Latin America, Africa, Eastern Europe, Puerto Rico. Um, so that's how we work. And everything we do really needs to fit into one of two categories. We're either helping a needy community stand on their own 2 feet. So those activities we're doing, we're installing concrete floors in the homes of single moms, or we are assembling and distributing wheelchairs to landmine victims, or
Mhm.
we are building a very simple wattle and daub style home in Kenya. And we're doing it not as superheroes coming in telling the local community what they need. We are asking the local community what do they need, and then our local staff that is from that country is leading the project and hiring whatever locals we need for expertise. So for example, when we're building wattle and daub style homes, our coordinator has hired the local expertise and foremen that know what is the right moisture content of the mud, So we don't expect our volunteers to have any skills, no language skills, no construction skills, no building skills. They're
So you're
signing up
just you're an
without
extra set of
knowing what they're
hands.
doing. Yeah. Hey, one thing I will say, so we will tell people, hey, we have all of our materials. Hey, here's what to pack. Here's what you
Mm.
can know about the ordinance. They're long. We have podcasts and YouTube channels that explain all that. And the only two things that you really 100% have to do ahead of time is you have to have, if there are any vaccines that are required. I
Of
think we
course.
only have one where it's required, Ghana yellow fever, and we include whatever the CDC recommendations are, but we're not in charge of making sure you get that. And then any visas, and there are only a couple countries where like our Bhutan and I think India and Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe you can do on arrival. Cambodia you can do on arrival. But anyway, so there are a couple things you do need to do ahead of time. In airfare, we do not do the airfare portion that is considered a for-profit business. But we can always usually give people help if they're like, where do I go for really good fares? Or should I go via this city or that? We can answer
Sure.
those kind of questions
You got
easily.
people. You got
So,
people for that.
and I said, we do small groups, but it's interesting. Over time, you had asked how this has been in this industry. It was when I first started, because there really was no short-term volunteering that I could find anywhere. I started doing this and we just grew really, really fast. And then COVID is not very good for people traveling. So we had a really hard time there for a few months. We were doing virtual events and things like that. So we were so grateful when things opened back up. And then there have been entities out there that weren't doing this ethically or responsibly, where they were either putting kids alone, vulnerable children like orphans, with um, visitors to the country that ended in bad things,
Mhm.
or they were doing more what I would call poverty tourism, basically taking photos with a little poor baby for social media
Oh my
sake. You
gosh.
know, um, so we are guided by trying to both do some kind of project that's going to help someone quickly, or something that culturally is going to expand the minds of our volunteers, so that they get to understand what are the priorities of this culture and how do they go about it, what do they think about the passage of time and what they eat and the music they listen to, and what are, you know so everything we do fits into one of those two categories. You could tell if you asked me a question, I could just talk for 3 hours, so I'll pause, but that's a bit about who we are, what we
I
do.
love it though. I think that's fantastic. And I love the idea of broadening someone's perspective and education and also seeing a place. Um, I think that's so great. And so if I could, I'm curious how you came about founding this. Like
Yeah.
what prompted this? I know most of us are like we're all the same, and then one day something happens and you're like, oh no, I have to make a change.
Yeah.
Like,
So, what was funny is, I went all the way to, I have graduate degrees in a master's of business administration and in art history, which seem unrelated, but where the way they're related is they both involve other cultures, other countries. So and then I double majored in French and art history, minored in Italian. Anyway, I always had an interest in other countries and travel, and had traveled. And so by the time I was working for a space services industry, and I was 30 years old back in the year 2000, um, and we put people's ashes into space. And it's not American citizens that are interested in this. It's Germans, Japanese, Brazilians. And so I would go and work with funeral homes in these countries. And so I would be there over the weekend, and I'd already seen the sites. And so I was looking, I'm not a beach person. I can only do it for a short period of time. So I was looking for what could I do that would be meaningful and interesting. And so I just started going and asking local community members, what can I do for you? Can I help you put in a ramp for your wheelchair? Can I help you do this, that, and the other? Because when I tried asking Habitat for Humanity or churches or schools, nobody wants to work with anyone short term, because you're
yep.
taking
Yeah.
someone off of, in order to be supervised and taught what to do, you're taking somebody off whatever they're going to do. And it kind of points to why people say, why would I ever have to pay to volunteer? And the countries where we operate, those communities, many of them have a hard time feeding their own kids, let alone having the resources. And so we don't have any other sources of funding. When
Right.
somebody spends that $1,400, that pays for the food, the transportation, the medical insurance, your coordinator's salary, all of that. So, so anyway, that's really the genesis of it. Because when I came back, I would tell people what I had done. I was shocked at how many other people said, "Oh, I want to do that. Can I go with you the next time you go?" So that was really how it started. And by the time 2003, February 2003, I left all my other work behind and did only this. So really, that's how it came about. And
Wow.
and really, we are serving and we are learning. It is not just about service, and the locals are really faster and better at everything we do. So I think a lot of people come into it with this mind that, hey, I'm going to go into this really poor community. I'm going to help them where they really need help. And really, financially being able to buy materials is definitely a help. Um, but again, we are, because I mean, even today, even though I've done almost all these projects, I am slow and bad at them. I'm sitting there doing it beside. So it's that magic that happens when you're working side by side with someone, seeing what their life is like, what their priorities are, what are the
Yeah.
real challenges, the real beauty that they're living with, not just the postcard version,
Right.
where it's touching your heart and your mind. in a way that, a lecture or a movie wouldn't. If you're sitting there pumping water to bring in a bucket across the street where we're mixing concrete, the niece, kid, sibling, friend that you brought with you that's doing that for the first time, and they're seeing all the local mamas washing their baby in the tubs that they brought and boiling that water that they brought over before they drink it. The second time that they go do that, they're being really careful not to spill any water. And nobody has to tell them that. You don't have to lecture.
Right.
It's this experiential learning. But then also seeing in the eyeballs of the local community how they feel about having us there and showing that we care, what that does for you selfishly,
Hmm.
feel that you can make an impact and you can connect. And I mean, societies, there's some division out there and strife, and it, with all the social media and all of the inputs we have, if somebody's in an office environment or Zoom after Zoom or whatever, you could kind of lose that real world connectedness
Right.
that can sustain your soul while you are sustaining someone else. So that's what we're after, that.
That sounds so fantastic. I mean, really, so you're helping in a minimal way, but you are
Well,
also
it's small
gaining.
scale help. I would say it's
Sure.
real small scale. You're
Sure.
building someone's home that didn't have one before.
Yeah.
That's real help.
Yeah.
For just if you've got a handful of people that can finish a home in a week, which we do, I feel like it's substantial, but it is small scale. It's not a hospital, it's not roads, and so on. We have built small
Yeah.
clinics in rural communities, but it's all small scale. And if you think about a work site that's got a ton of people in hard hats operating heavy equipment and machinery, and that's not a communal experience.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Yeah, and so it's like the many hands make light work type of
that's
thing,
exactly right.
and you're also gaining community, and there's that small world feeling, like we're all community, we're working together to do something good, and that's like better than any vacation could ever offer, right? That
Well, certainly
feeling.
for me, and I suspect it's not for everyone. There are understandably a lot of people who on in their free time are wanting to be pampered, and this is it's soul pampering, but it is not it's not luxury. It's not luxury travel. And as somebody who wants to eat in chain restaurants
Right.
and be in Western style hotels and feel and stay in familiar environments, this is not for them. It's not, or even, one of the biggest challenges we face is trying to bridge the cultural differences. And one of the biggest is, our volunteers want to come in, they want to get something done. Our standard volunteer is a busy working North American because we have charity status in the US and Canada, so from Canada as well. And so they're like, hurry, let's get this done. And the local communities usually don't have productivity at the top of their priority list. And it's amazing how much that informs your behavior.
Hmm.
So if you're in Costa Rica and in the rainforest, if it really starts pouring down rain, the locals are going to stop for a cup of coffee, you know, and our volunteers really need to do that too. So our coordinator is asking, a lot of them are like, no, 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 we can do it. We can push through. Like, no, 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 you don't know. This will get done. This will get done. We're going to have, so, it's interesting. Those kind of expectations, are something to be overcome by a lot of people.
Hmm.
And not that we have, it's so many instances we have and so many companies that we've worked with. And I'm thinking of Legacy and Vivint and Salesforce and Microsoft. Those volunteers will come out and we'll start working on something and we'll tell everybody, hey, we're going to stop at 4 o'clock. And at 4 o'clock, no, no, we just want to finish the, can we do that? And so we've had so many times where people just push through extra hours and that happens. Uh, but anyway, it's an interesting thing that people may not expect that we have to face, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay. I mean, do you have a lot of like teams? Because I mean, you were talking about some businesses, and so do they do like work site or like off, I don't know, work
So
team?
what we'll do is in the weeks that aren't listed on our website, or any week if we know enough in advance, we will give to companies, schools, and churches. So if a team from name the company wants to go and work with special needs kids in Romania, then and we've had up to 250 people in our Cambodia location, for example. We have a coordinator per every 10 to 12 people so that we treat it like that's 20 to 25 small groups instead of
Right.
one big group
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that we maintain the close community, even though we have meals at dinner and breakfast together. So where was I going with that? So the company will, and we can tailor it. So if they say we only have 4 days or we want 9 days, so we will work with them and to tailor that program. And I know you didn't intend to give me a platform for this, but for anybody who's looking to do that, your most employers with a certain number of employees has contribution matching that is usually eligible to be used for this kind of a program.
Mhm.
So a lot of times it'll be 1,000, $1,500, whatever. And so if you pay $600, the company will pay, and it's paid for. And
Right.
it's a tax deduction against your income to that five, and it's a non-taxable benefit for the employer to give the employee. So even
Ooh.
if we didn't start out thinking about working with companies and churches and schools in this capacity, they kind of came to us
Hmm.
over time. So when you talk about groups and teams, um, we I mean, we work with a whole lot of different groups, and some of this is changing. Like right now, a lot of universities that are under budget cuts are having to cut back on things like service travel.
Right.
We had a lot of solar companies that, because of the tax incentive that was lost this April, aren't doing this kind of thing as much. And instead, we're working more with companies like crypto companies and companies that are in a different space. So that's always changing for us, whatever groups that are coming with us.
Hmm.
And then we'll even have, girls trips or family reunion trips or even people using donor advised funds or charitable family foundations where they're using it in this way where they're really giving back, leaving something meaningful, but also getting something meaningful, and then coming back and learning their headspace, their perspective on the world.
Yeah.
That, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it gives a lot of perspective. And so what was the first when you were talking about the crypto businesses and the people that are in a different space than people that have typically participated? Some you said charitable trust, but then they were the first thing that you had talked about. I didn't quite catch that.
You're not talking about contribution matching from employers or
No, no, it was the last little bit
the
that you were
donor advised funds or
donor advised funds.
yeah, they're called, yeah, the
Okay,
DAF. And so, there are various charitable structures out there. And one is where families can set up these donor advised funds where they help determine which charitable causes they want to go to. And I am not a
sure.
financial advisor and informed enough to give you all the details on that. We just work with, there will be, someone like a Bill and Melinda Gates, they may have a separate donor advised fund where they're able to use funds in this way. So there are lots of different structures, and I'm sure I am not aware of all of them that are out there. But and of course, we try and enable personalized email fundraising campaigns too. So if somebody wants to say, "Hey, I want to see if I can get people to sponsor me on my trip to Cambodia," and making wheelchairs, and then we've got the letter with the donor form so that the funds will all go to them, just like you would with the Race for the Cure or something. It is not the majority of them. Most That's not the way most people fund it, but we do make that available.
Okay. Are there, so you said mostly, you said there's like Dominican Republic and then,
We
uh,
don't have Dominican Republic, but we do
oh,
have Puerto Rico,
Puerto Rico, that's the one. I'm sorry.
Cuba, Mexico, Peru, uh, Ghana, South Africa, Malawi, Zimbabwe. Uh, oh, so many. I won't be able to remember them
Yeah, yeah.
all.
And then so
Laos,
like
Cambodia, Thailand,
you're right, Asia
the
and
Southeast.
Romania.
Yeah, yeah, Southeast Asia. Yeah, yeah. So lots of different locations, and those change. We had a program in China that we closed in January of 2020 that has never reopened, you
Oh,
know, and we had been working on a program for Russia that we've decided not to pursue. Things change, and if a place becomes war torn or there's a disease outbreak, we suspend the program.
sure.
Because we don't have skilled volunteers and we are not paramilitary. We don't have machine guns and helicopters. So we have to keep our volunteers super, super safe places where they're not handling bodily fluids, operating heavy equipment and machinery. They've got to be not high on ladders.
Right.
Um, so it limits what we do.
Sure.
Um, but fortunately, in a lot of the countries where we work, we've gotten to a point where we have some kind of a rhythm where we see um, hey, this project has worked really well, and other communities see it, and the more people in the community want it. And so that's kind of the path we've led.
I love that. I mean, I think it's great. Um, is there a region that's more popular? I mean, is that's not
Yeah,
quite the
yeah.
right
And
word, but
particularly for here's the pattern we've noticed. First time volunteers are super likely to go to places like Costa Rica and Guatemala because they're on the same time zone or not too far off, and they're not far flights. And the flights are cheaper because they're close,
right, flights are cheaper, of
or
course.
Mexico. And then and then I think a lot of times if somebody hasn't traveled a lot, they might be afraid, is it going to be safe? Am I going to be eating monkey eyeballs? What's going to happen? They've got some fear there. And then when they go and they're like, oh my gosh,
Right.
totally doable. This is awesome. Then they get more and more brave and they make
They
the
get that
next
travel bug
Rome and
and
the
the
next to
yep.
Cambodia and the next. Yeah. So that's the progression we've seen.
Yeah. I can imagine, just wanting to experience the culture and, you would
Yeah.
want to do something that's very different from what you're used to. But like, is there, and then so we've talked about the more popular quote unquote, but then like, are there places that you really need more help in?
Well, I'll tell you that the need in Costa Rica is nowhere near as extreme as a place as, say, Cambodia, because the government of Costa Rica provides socialized health care and medicine, and they've got drinkable water everywhere, and they can grow anything, and they have less materially. Socially, they're a very close culture, so you're not going to see people with distended bellies and flies on their eyes. Not that there's no homelessness, not that there's no there are those
It's not as
things.
extreme.
But in terms of basics, like if somebody loses their job in Costa Rica, they're not worried about how am I going to pay for my medical care, or
Okay.
are my kids going to have to leave university.
Right.
They just don't worry about those things.
Right.
So while you'll see people in these very simple one room concrete houses, you don't see starvation, and you don't see this. Here in the U.S., since our healthcare is so often tied to our employers, you feel like a slave to your employer. And I, I mean, this isn't politically saying it should be one way or another, but it's interesting. It provides you opportunity to see when you're in another country. Hey, these people have a lot less. They're not all walking around with an $1,800 phone. Um, what is the real challenge of someone living in a more rural community in Costa Rica? What is it?
Mhm.
They're actually usually spending more time with their friends and family and faith than we are. So if you ask someone from North America, what's the most important thing to them in all the world? It's probably one of those three things. How much time are they spending on it, right? So that's a real beauty in Costa Rica for sure.
Mhm.
A real challenge. Hey, if your phone breaks and you are relying on that to communicate with your work and your family, it's a lot more expensive in Costa Rica than it would be here, and we think it's expensive here.
Right.
And is that even a challenge? Well, what are the real challenges? So then you look at it. If when they get rain, and a road will just be washed out, and they'll have to wait. Now they can rebuild them pretty quickly in a couple of weeks, often, but then people are all of a sudden having to drive 2 hours where they used to drive 20. That happens frequently in
Yeah,
Costa Rica, not frequently for us. So, you don't, if you're a tourist, it's hard to see these things.
sure. Right. And so then you're saying Cambodia is probably it's a higher need.
Bigger culture shock, higher need, and thank you for getting me back on track. So the need varies a lot in terms of where the need is greatest. Usually is where the culture shock is deeper.
Hmm.
So I try and steer people to not just think about need, because this is also about learning and understanding, because there is need everywhere. And I would also like to insert a little service announcement that community service, community serving in your own neighborhood, your own family, that all of that comes first, right? We do not think this replaces the need to be connected to your community. Sometimes we'll get people that will email us kind of anonymously and say, how can you be helping those people in that country when we still have needs in our own country? So this is not about that. But I do think when volunteers have done a lot of service in their community and in their neighborhoods, and then they go to a place like Cambodia and they see that you can be considered middle class and not have access to running water.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a different perspective. It's not that one service is more important than the other. I think it is important to serve first and foremost in your community.
Okay. Sure. Okay. And I think it's wonderful. I think, there are so many people I mean, like me, I haven't traveled a lot. So the culture experience would be really wonderful. And also to be able to serve, I think that's great. And you're gaining community because what other chance would you have to meet, local people in Cambodia or Romania or, Ghana or wherever? Um, but I do have a question that's been like on my mind, and I don't want to like have it just distract me from everything. But why are people sending ashes to space?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Well, um, it's in the same way that some people believe our bodies belong in a box in the ground. Some people think you should burn the body to take up
Right.
less space.
Yep.
And there are certain kind of space obsessed cultures that feel like you're becoming one with the universe. And what we would do is we would have little lipstick sized canisters where you would put part of your ashes in there, and then we had payload space on shuttles that would go out for putting satellites out and release them
Okay. I
in
like that.
space like that. And there's a few famous people. The guy who wrote Star Trek was one of them. People who are just interested in space. And so funeral homes in Brazil and Germany and Brazil, those are some of the countries that offer this as one of the more interesting ways to memorialize someone or to handle
Yeah.
your remains. But I'm
Okay.
glad you asked because it is interesting. I actually prefer to say we sent dead people into space. I feel like that's more interesting
It
for
gets your attention for sure. I know
sure.
I was like trying to be cool and like, oh, let's just move on. And I'm like, but why are they doing that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's interesting that it would be run from the US since there are not many people in the US. But when it comes to the space industry and having access to shuttles and satellites and all that, it's definitely, I was in Houston at the time, and Houston still is important in the world of space. So just an unusual uh, visit. Still out there.
Interesting. Wow. But you said that most of the people were they're not in the US that were
Right,
doing that. I'm gonna
right.
be stuck on that now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Amy, you go look it up.
I will
It's
do
always
that
an
for
option.
sure. And okay, so what kind of preparation does someone need to do this? I know you said it doesn't require a lot of training skills. I mean, I think of when I think of I mean, I guess I was thinking when you were talking about what was happening there, I was thinking of, like a Habitat for Humanity type of thing where you're helping out or volunteering or whatever. But then, you said that they have a hard time with that because they really need more skill. Um,
Or longer term,
right.
most service is set up for, minimum of 3 weeks, and it makes sense why they do.
Sure.
And look, hey, in the Peace Corps, you can be paid. It's on a lot, but it's like $16,000 for your 2.5 years. So,
Right.
there are various ways of going about it. Yeah.
I really like that. And I think the thought of community, like local community there, I think would just be so
Yeah.
fulfilling. Um,
I have to say that's the top thing people come away with, really getting to know. I mean, just little things like in most of our communities, everyone is so friendly and wanting to interact with us. Of course, they've seen us time and time again. They know we're there for good things, and So when you go to our South Africa program, you're playing soccer with the kids on the five-a-side that we installed, and we're getting to hear this song. I mean, we on our videos and podcasts, you can hear and see all this stuff. But in terms of preparation, you had asked, and because we don't require any skills, the real preparation is making sure that, and we email all of this, if there's any visas or vaccines. Beside from that, our packing list is pretty simple. None of the places we go require anything more than just simple clothes you don't mind getting messed up. So, and getting your airfare. So it's sort of like signing up for a cruise. You don't really
Right.
do anything to prepare for it unless
Right.
you're going to a country where they're going to require a visa. And we communicate a lot. I mean, there's not many companies where you can call and a human will pick up, but we are one of them. And
My favorite.
so we're able to, I mean, it's amazing some of the, I like try having someone answer just to book an appointment with a doctor. I just feel like that's almost impossible these days, right? You're in a phone tree and then you might get a text. And anyway, so we're still, at least as of October 2025, very human to human high touch industry. I don't know how AI could impact our industry, but I'm probably overlooking something. What we have done is we have used AI to take our orientation packets and turn some of those into podcasts. Um, though the vast majority of our podcasts are me, of our volunteers, our coordinators. So not that, but just as an experiment, we're like, what? We should be doing something, right? And we just can't figure, we should be doing something with AI. We just can't figure out what it is.
Right. And what is the name of your podcast? Is it Globe Aware?
Globe aware. In fact, any way anybody wants to find us, we're on Apple and podcast, Spotify, all that with Globe aware. A lot of people say global, I think make it two syllables, but it's just Globe aware. And so we're on Facebook and, YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and all of the handles are at GlobalWare, one word. So we're super easy to find. And our podcast and our YouTube clips try and show things that will hopefully be of service to people, whether or not they're going on our program. So for example, if you want to go to Cuba and you need to know how to fill out the Visa tourist card, there's a video showing you could go to the Cuba playlist or the South Africa playlist. Like, this is what I'll see for fun. This is what I'll eat. This is how to pack. This is how you get through immigration. Little things for people who feel like they want to know more
Right.
before they go. And then lots of people just go in blind. And we do have activities designed to help. Again, something that maybe a traditional tourist wouldn't do. We do cultural activities in the mornings, a cultural item. And so, for example, in Costa Rica on Monday, it might be, did you know that in Costa Rica, they don't use traditional street addresses? You have a paragraph. You'll say, um, go to Don Pablo Luis Miguel's house, which is 600 meters south of the White Church, 4 miles south of Cartago, 3 miles, blah, blah, blah. And that's how they do it. And it leads a discussion like, well, how can they do that? How do they, wouldn't they, how do they even spread? But, in Japan, they still do that. And so, it leads to this reevaluation of your own expectations of what society is. And then in the afternoons, in the evenings at dinner, we'll ask everybody a reflective exercise. Like it might be name a kindness you observed today, or what is something you discovered you're grateful for, or that kind of thing. So we try, and people might go in blind without any preparation, but we're designed to try and have a heavy impact in a short period of time.
Ah, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And so you said that the groups are relatively small, like you said nine, like nine volunteers.
Well, I'd say the average is 10 to 12. And then
Okay.
when we do the in-between corporate social groups, those will often be very bigger, but we treat them as groups of 10 to 12, 10 to 15. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And ooh, this just sounds so fun. It,
Oh, Amy, you
it
got to
really
do it. You'll
does.
love it. You'll love
And
it.
and so now you've done this for 25 years. Do you go on like every trip?
I've, I've, no, I couldn't because they're all offered every other week throughout
Oh yeah, of
but
course.
I will go on when we have big corporate groups because most of our coordinators are, they're used to handling their group of 10 to
Smaller
15. We're
groups.
not used to. So we need, so either me or somebody from our regional headquarters will go to oversee the individual volunteers. And they'll usually go for a few weeks ahead of time just to make sure everything's set up. So I've done a fair number of those, but I have been on, I'm trying to think if there's any programs I haven't been on. I haven't been on our Malawi program.
Really?
Um, yeah, I feel like there might be one other, but I've been on most of them. Yeah,
Okay. So,
yeah.
in 25 years later, Kimberly, do you still love it?
What we do in the field, I absolutely love. Of course, some of the stuff that you're dealing with on this end, on my end,
Oh, the
it's been
administrative?
real, administrative, and oh my gosh, the wire fees just went up another $25, and the currency exchange, the
Yeah,
exchange fluctuated, and you still got to deal with the same budget you collected that you're using. That I mean, so some of what I'm dealing with is really not the fun magic stuff. It's the
sure.
stuff that keeps things humming and going. But do get those touch points. I read all the feedback. Um, Everybody does. And so that keeps me connected. And I do get to go on quite a few of the programs every year so that I do maintain. So I love that. I love what we do. I love the volunteers that are in place and our coordinators and our communities. I love every bit, every second of that. Yeah.
That's so awesome. I love that, that it hasn't become just like, yeah, this is what we do.
Right.
We're helping people and it's really exciting for you. And I'm just here. And, I'm so glad that you've still got that fire. That's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So what has been your favorite? That's not really the right wording. Um, what lights you up about it? What is your favorite part? I guess what's your favorite part about it all?
So, in every instance, it's that time with the coordinators and the volunteers where we connect over something. And the first time I gave a wheelchair to landmine victims, they're all children. Um, it was looking at the parents' eyes, not the kids' eyes,
Hmm.
that stayed with me because this parent had envisioned what their kid's future was going to look like. The
Yeah.
kid didn't have a vision, and I hadn't been prepared of how meaningful that was going to be. Just looking at woman to woman in eyes that there's so you don't have to speak the same language.
Yeah. Yeah. Like heart to heart, like you
Yeah.
can feel what she's
I mean,
feeling.
people should write checks and they should donate books and food and all that stuff, but it doesn't replace. I don't care what Zoom, video, book, movie, it cannot replace in my mind what happens when you're physically with someone connecting on something like that. You're feeling the same temperature, smelling the same smells, hearing the same music, living the connection. It's just it's hard to imagine. I don't know, maybe AI will do it. I can't picture it, but for me it's that's been the those are the golden moments.
I can't imagine AI could replace that
Yeah.
at all. But oh, that's got to be just so wonderful. I mean, I just imagine the helplessness of a parent whose child has been injured, like
Yeah.
paralyzed or injured or whatever, and to then have them have this chance of being whole.
Yeah. Oh, and we've witnessed some things, these are all the things you don't even have on your itinerary. There was a family that met a Doug Robinson with Legacy. We were walking past a home in the Philippines where a baby had just been born. It had some kind of bad blood disease that was likely to end his life very early. And so he asked what he could do, and they went to the hospital the next day and paid for $1,100 of medical expenses that I don't remember if it fully cured him or just prolonged. It was some kind of substantial treatment that basically was buying him years and years and years for $1,100. And it was, again, not something that we didn't ask for. It wasn't had
Right,
nothing to do
right.
with what Globalware had planned. It was just this moment of connection that our volunteers made. I mean, that's why I say, the magic
Yep.
that happens is much more about what the people who are serving on our programs do while they're there. They're put in an environment where it's very rich and fertile to have these kinds of things happen, but it's the volunteers that make it happen, you know, to
Sounds
the
so wonderful.
community.
Oh my goodness. And of course, moments like that are something that, for the most part, only a CEO or manager of a big company would be able to just like shell that out. But so glad that he was there for that. My goodness, what an
Yeah.
opportunity.
No, and we've had it. It's we. it's one of many examples like that. I mean, there have been some really crazy shows of generosity. Don Germais, who was an news anchor in Miami for many years, he's been on many of our programs, but the one he keeps going back to, the hill tribes in Thailand. Every time he goes, he has a fundraiser. And this year, he got industrial sized washers and dryers for the kids center there, and he has put in a new water filter, separate and apart from the work he does when he comes with us. I mean, I could shout out so many.
Oh, he's
And
just so touched that he can't stop.
well, and he gets to know everyone there, and he sees where things are going. He knows he's going to be back, so he'll be able to see that project in place. And and these are things that other people start. You know, it wasn't because we planned the washer dryer thing. It was because Don was there talking to the folks, said, "What else can I do? What else do you need?" They said, you know. So, and social media has made that nice because then when those projects are put in place, you can upload videos and photos and people that are using it. And you feel connected to what you just did, you know.
Right. Oh man. Of course. Yeah. That's so wonderful. Oh my goodness. That sounds like such a, I mean, it sounds like a real fulfilling vacation type of thing. I mean, it doesn't sound like a vacation, but it's like it's special
We do have
and
downtime, and again,
memorable.
we do have leisure time, and we aren't slave drivers. So, you know, if
Sure.
somebody's sick or tired or jet lagged or whatever, and they need to take a rest, we're not going to say, "Hey, you can't rest."
You're
Uh,
here to work.
yeah. So, and you know, we're not putting people in
Yeah.
really awful conditions out in the fields in 105-degree weather. I mean, you know, we would go out of business if we didn't
Right.
keep
Of
in
course.
mind that these have to be reasonable things that people are doing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it sounds like my kind of vacation,
yeah.
honestly. Okay. Well, that's wonderful. I mean, thank you so much for talking about that. I love more meaningful things. It's just, I think, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, but like, I don't want the luxury anymore. I want to serve and I want to feel like I'm doing something
Sure.
meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Okay.
that, you know, I feel like there comes in a time in everyone's life where they're looking for other ways of connecting, other ways of experiencing, and um, that's what we're here for. So,
Yeah. Okay. Well, so Kim, what does the word sustainability mean to you?
so for me, it means in our context, it means helping someone stand on their own 2 feet. We're not handing out candy and money.
Mm,
You know, we're trying to do projects that will help them be independent, that they chose. So we know there's buy-in and it'll still be there 10 years from now, not just something we built so that we could put it on social media and then 10 years from now nobody's using it because somebody was told they needed it without
right.
asking them what they need.
Right.
So, to me, that's what sustainability is, helping someone else stand on their own 2 feet.
I love that. Okay. And then I think that you said it's basically globe aware everywhere.
Everywhere. Globeware.org, globeware.com, Globeware podcast, Globeware YouTube channel, Globeware Instagram, it's all globe aware. And it says something about how old we are, that our Facebook following is the biggest. I think we have 350,000 followers, something like that. More than TikTok, for example. So,
Right. But it's great that it's universal. Like wherever you
yeah,
go, you don't have to like I know some people you have to go by their name or the name of the
yeah,
business, or, you've got to change it up with the little underscore or whatever,
right.
just globe aware. Um, okay. So this has been so inspiring and I'm so happy to learn about Globe Aware. This is just a really cool organization and thing to offer people. I think that, on every end, the person serving and the person receiving. I think that's just community and growing together and learning about different cultures and forming relationships with people. I just think it's so important. And thank you very much for sharing that. Thank you so much for founding this. Thank you so much for, just doing everything that you do. I think it's so important and amazing that there's that option, because I know when I was like just out of high school, I was like, oh, I want to jump or join the Peace Corps, but I'm like, I can't afford to do for 2 years or whatever it is. Um, and so then I had to just, start working.
Sure.
And And so, it's nice to know that there's still an option to be able to travel and do some serving.
Sure. Yeah, that's right.
So thank you for that.
Well, no, Amy, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you about it. As you can hear, I'm pretty passionate about it. We're used to people calling us and chatting through, hey, these are the options. And hey, what you want to chat through, what might be good for you, what you're ready for. We do that all day, every day. So we're always happy to do that.
Yeah. Okay. And so, y'all, if you're listening to this, I want you to check out GlobalWare wherever your socials are, and look into this if it's something that interests you, and if you want to start a group to do something like that, let me know.
All right. Well, give us a call. We're happy to hear from you.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you, Amy.